Hello everyone, how's it going? So this is a follow-up. The last video about HS and her video about breaking up the Democrats, it got cut off. So kind of finagling how this works with the time and how much they allow you, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. But it's also kind of good because I really don't, in the future, I'm trying to maybe just keep things between like 15-20 minutes max anyway. And, just maybe kind of break things into parts and stuff. But anywho, so before the video got cut off, I was kind of, just in summation, she has a great channel. I'm subscribed. The information, the tools that she, provides Black women, but I mean anyone can use them, are really beneficial and good, and they're really cool. And I think you should subscribe and definitely check out her work. I'm glad she did the video on this subject because there's a lot of things politically I do want to cover on this channel, and also that just branch off into 1,000 different areas. So this was great to finally get to a video more about politics itself. But there was like maybe one point, I'll try to relink them in this description box. I left 3 links, and I guess I'll start there before I make my final point, kind of circling back to HS's original video and what, about breaking up the Democrats and where Black women could go forward in the future. So the first one link was to Jimmy Dore. I think he's a great progressive. He's really fun. He's actually a comedian who's got, more into politics over time. He's a part of the Young Turks network, and I'm really not a fan of Anna and Cenk Uygur and that crew particularly. But he's someone who voted for Jill Stein. He's really funny, and, he's kind of like, he has a lot of Bernie bros and a lot of Jill voters who kind of support him. Very critical of the neoliberal establishment just as much as the neoconservative establishment. I mean, he calls Donald Trump Donnie Tiny Hands. And, it's, I can laugh at it. I think there's a lot of things Trump deserves a good ribbing on, and somebody voted for him for a variety of reasons, which I'll go into later. I'm totally fine with that, and I love what he does with his channel, and I think it's a great, news source that anyone can add in. So as far as like, breaking up the Democrats, anybody that comes over, from that video or that comes to look, that's one link that I would love to give everyone. Check him out. I didn't leave this one in there, the Humanist report. I can't remember his name right now. Dang it. He's another person kind of similar to Jimmy Dore, has a great channel that's progressive. I think he voted for Bernie Sanders. Very supportive of Jill Stein supporters as well. So, that's one thing I'll leave you with is that's where I actually find a lot more commonality, surprisingly. I think there's some good alt-right stuff out there. People are more to the dissident right, paleoconservative, the kind of outgrowth neo-reactionary type right. And I think they have a lot to offer. But so alongside of where I kind of draw a lot of my current political and social cultural ideas and just things that I'm interested in, the people who I find saying things that I'm like interested in or presenting cool arguments and different trains of thought, that would definitely be somewhere that I would go. So Jimmy Dore and the Humanist Report, 2 great progressive channels. I did leave a link to The Intercept. Oh, no, I think I took the links to The Intercept out, but that's Glenn Greenwald. He's like kind of the primary, most noticeable name you'd remember. The whole Edward Snowden story broke, with him and Edward Snowden. So I would say that's another great, more left-leaning journalism that's like good and accountable. Because again, as I left in the original comment from HS's video, is that there's a lot. This last election was more about globalism versus nationalism. With the term left and right, Republican, Democrat, it's really failing to encapsulate where we are just in our own country, but also globally. And that's one big conversation I want to have with Black women, particularly knowing that a majority of us in America vote Democrat. And, it's funny, that whole Roy Moore thing, I kind of really want to unpack that with a lot of Black women, because sometimes I think we're being set up. This is one of the things I didn't say in her original comment, that on Hatshepsut. I always goof it up, I'm sorry. It's a really tricky Egyptian word to get out. On the original comment, that was what I was really trying to get at, is like, I think, and I said in the previous video that I just made, Black women what KFC talks about is make yourself a sacrifice. I think that's a great analogy when you look at the Democratic Party and the politics going on right now, because a lot of Black women are making themselves a sacrifice for a race that doesn't care about them, and then for a political party that's just kind of use them and let the worst of the worst just be representative of what they do. So that actually leads me to the follow-up to the part 1. The past election is very indicative of it. But a lot of these historical trends with the Republicans, Democrats have been a long time coming. in political theory, and just political history in America the past 50 years. But particularly with the last election was a very stark example of this, is that the white working class, not the wealthy, not the rich, I'm talking mostly your white people, men mostly and women who are somewhere between, let's just say $50,000 to $100,000 a year income. So I'm just going to use that kind of broad brush right there. People who made, the forgotten man that he kind of talks about in his videos. When you think about the history of the Democratic Party, going from FDR, the New Deal, being kind of right there from the JFK to Lyndon Johnson, Great Society transformations, and a lot of those cultural and a lot of those policy changes that, led to cultural and social changes amongst black people. That was a very key time in our history. But now we're about 40, 50 years past that, and a lot of black people, particularly those who didn't vote for Trump or vote for Hillary, and who are now, in amongst black women, having these discussions about, well, what's next? Can we take things over? Now, there's another link in part one, and I'll drop those over to here too, from the week. And the article for the week is just a very short. The Democratic Party is broke, but the RNC is up about 40 million in terms of like their, war chest or what have you. So, and then I have to go back and find this. I think Jimmy Dore covered it on his channel. That part of the reason the Democratic Party is kind of broke is one thing that they were doing is they were hiring consultants doing off-year campaigns, keeping a lot of the Obama people from the past his two elections on as staffers, spending money, just kind of greasing the palms within the party. And then you have the whole Bernie Sanders mess and how they basically stole the nomination from him and all that junk, trying to make it like Jill Stein was just so evil for running. All the inter-party mess that came along with that too was quite a to-do. So basically, and when she said originally it's time for a good chance for black women to take over, that's where I have to agree and disagree. I agree. Well, I'll do the disagree first. I disagree because it's almost similar to what black women now in these empowerment circles are talking about. We don't want to be trying to build a nigga. All the things that they want us to do to take a broke man, love a black man, build him up, blah, 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 blah. You can basically try to transfer that same argument to the DNC. If they don't have any money, there's issues with funding. If going forward, particularly, they're going to be having problems attracting the white male working class vote back and, getting them back on the plantation, if you will, then I just don't see why we should be in the business of rehabbing that. And there's a couple other reasons too. I think maybe I'll just do a specific black women Democratic vote video as time goes on with this channel, just because it's a subject with black women that I specifically want to address directly, and I can get a little bit more nuance there. So the disagree part, I would say, is, well, I mean, so this is the big thing I came back with. Now, the Hispanic population in this country is scheduled to grow. It's kind of a demographic changes baked into the cake. So once you talk about the decline of the white working class, the white birth rate in this country, the Hispanics are the ones slated to grow. They already are pretty mainstay, loyal voters to the Democratic Party at all kinds of levels. The people who are there for immigration, people who are just a non-white voter that statistically speaking votes more Democrat than others. So, I mean, if you're a black woman and you really want to learn some Spanish and become an advocate by proxy for their goals, I see that being probably where the Democratic Party's, in focus will turn. Like, if you really look at it, I'm just painting a very broad brush here. We had black women and men under the Great Society from when all those votes came in, all the social and policy changes. We spent the 70s with the gang violence just starting, and then by the 80s, add on the crack cocaine. By the 90s, just kind of still in that mess. You get to Bill Clinton, the big welfare reform, a lot of the, minimum sentencing, a lot of black men predominantly going to prison for a bit of time. I mean, we spent the past 40 years kind of not doing anything that mostly Democrats and some Republicans voted for to give us as reparations, in a sense, as a kind of, I don't want to say mea culpa, that's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of lost for words here, and I don't want to get stuck on that. Basically, it's just, I don't think it's going to be focused on us anymore, because again, as I said previously, the face of the Democratic Party, look at black people, it's the kind of caricature that a lot of people, alt-right, white nationalists, whomever, just, or even just, your kind of Tea Party Republican type draw. It's just a party for getting black people more welfare. And, we all know, especially in these circles, we've unpacked the whys, why black women do what they do, why black men. So obviously, I know there's a lot more behind that, but just in the short, that's become the face Democratic Party. More money for them programs, more money for Shaniqua and Tyrone. And I think the sentiment that started to change now, it was already accelerating before Trump, but now I think we have a very finite idea that, yes, this is the way a lot of white working class people and white people in general are feeling. And hell, even some of us feel, when you probe us about how we feel the way we feel, that's becoming what people are seeing this party become. And I just think that at the top levels, your Schumers, your Pelosi's, the big wigs that run the party, they know that that's how they might have lost this white working class vote for near forever. But again, because there's only really one political party, it's all just kind of a show. Anyway, it doesn't particularly matter, but on the micro level that we're looking at here in this 1-2 dimension bird eye view, that's what I think the overarching sentiment is, and it doesn't make sense for me to black women to take over anything. I think primarily what we should focus on is just being apolitical on the face. You go behind that curtain as a black woman, you vote for who the hell you want to vote for. But let's stop being the face of any party. I'm not sitting in any way, shape, or form saying let's run up to the Republican Party and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be one of these I voted for Trump and I'm black. I really hate those videos, but I think I'm just going to make one for the clicks just to see what happens. Because, I see a lot of those out there. They kind of tire me too, because a lot of the ones who went over, especially the black men, who are kind of like the half hoteps, which we'll cover soon. It's all just so disingenuous anyway, but anywho, I might just have to make one of those videos because there's some other things I could flesh out there. So, in closing, wrapping this up, the Hispanics, if you black women want to become very tied to what they're into, because as an emerging large number of the demographic that they're going to make up and already being majority Democratic voters, you could probably command some power, but it's not going to just be because you're a black woman. You're going to have to be a part of something and give them something that they want. So I'll just leave it there in closing, and I'll catch you guys on the other side. Take care.